Hi, it's Ray from Pro Shaper Workshop, and can you believe it? It's been months since we've been on this Porsche dash. We've been wanting to get to it, but some really good student stories came up with the MG rear fender with Ian, and then we also had with Van the really good story on the machine gun turret, so we had to show that. So Mark is here, and we got our A-team in on the videos. We're not using my phone. We're going to take this, what we're going to do tonight is we did the top section. I asked Mark to dust it off. Apparently he didn't dust it off. Let me get the freaking thing and dust the thing off. All right, so this is what we got so far. This is just roughed out. We need a lot of detail work still in these tapered corner sections here. This was the really complicated left side of the dash. This needs a little bit of tuning also, and then eventually this will get welded in here. And I figured tonight we'll get a start on this section, and my plan is to get these pieces roughly where they need to be, and then we'll go through all the finesse operations. So first thing we're going to do is take this off. And this has been on probably for like 6 months or something now. So it's stuck pretty good. And it's a real careful operation taking this off. You don't want it to delaminate it. You have the first layer of tape, which is the low stick tape. And this was put on in the summertime, so it's probably stuck pretty good. So we're going to carefully peel this off, and it'll delaminate it. When it does delaminate, you got to push it back on and keep it all on index. So sometimes I use a razor blade to help lift it up. And this is a real tough one right here. Mark wrapped it around here really tough, and there's not much to grab. Mark did the flexible shape patterns. And then see, it's coming apart a little bit right there. So you got to carefully keep pulling it up. Now normally I wouldn't have put it around here. Normally what I do is when I put the flexible shape pattern on the first layer, I'll bring the little 2-inch little tab out here, and I'll cut that right there with a razor blade at a 90-degree angle. But Mark insists that I told him to wrap it around, which I don't believe.
No, Colonel Sanders, you're wrong.
See, this is why I don't like to wrap them around. What you do here is this needs a flange, which adds strength to it. So right here should be a dotted line, and he does have a really light dotted line in here. That tells you that there's going to be a flange there. All right, we got the flexible shape pattern off. We're going to cut the blank out of aluminum. But first I just want to do a little analysis of the surface with just a simple straight edge. This is a piece of aluminum we sheared up. And we'll put it here, and it looks like this is pretty dead flat right in here. And this way here we have a little rock. So all in this area, that's just basically a standard compound curve. We have a little bit of reverse maybe in here because it's going to be coming up and then around, and that's going to be rocking this way, and then it's going to have the gap, so that's definitely a little reverse right there. And then over here we have the radius going this way, and it's pretty flat right in here, but right in here the radius is going this way, and it's also going this way, so those are going the same direction. That's not a reverse, that's like what I call an inverted standard. So that will have to be pumped up a little bit, but it'll be going not this way but the other way. So when we took this off, Mark had made this all these flanges as part of the, there's a flange here and there's a flange here as part of the flexible shape pattern, and those flanges can be used, but they were very small, and oftentimes what I do is I just cut that off. I don't include that in the flexible shape pattern, so I ended up with my scissors here cutting all that off, and I'll have to accommodate for that with extra material. So basically this one isn't that difficult. The only difficulty lies a little bit in here, a little reverse, and we'll have to figure out this. And we'll have to punch all the holes in here to transfer this positions of where all this transition takes place, where it starts to make this angle bend over. But first we got to do is take this and we'll mark it on a panel. We're going to lay it on the piece of aluminum. We're going to trace around the perimeter, and then we might add an inch all the way around, and we're going to be cutting that down. All right, presto, we took the flexible shape pattern off. We made a blank. What I did was put this on the aluminum, and this will flip-flop around a little bit, so that's why I want to make sure I got a lot of extra material there. I don't need that much, but that gives me a little insurance if I need it. And this part here isn't as complicated. It's just over here. And what complicates this is this transitional bend here. Oftentimes that could be cut off right here on the flexible shape pattern and then add that in after. Now, we're making this whole section, and it goes right here again as we took it off. We're making that in one piece. Now, as I mentioned before, this was made by Bruce Kimmins, and he lives in Arizona. I think he was originally a Kiwi from New Zealand, and I don't know his background as far as how he learned how to do this. He might be self-taught, I don't know. But it looks like he's, I probably spoke a little bit about this before, but he's using what I call the English technique, which is wheeling out smaller little pieces and then welding them together, and he's a gas welder. The welds are superb. The quality of the work is absolutely superb, but to make this same part that we're making here in one piece, he's got a piece here, a piece here, a piece here, and a piece here. So that's 4 pieces total, and that's a lot of linear welding that you have to deal with. And he is a practitioner of using a pick hammer. I think I've mentioned this before, and that's a no-no in my book. I do not like pick hammers at all. It leaves this terrible looking surface in the backside. I like my backside surfaces to look pretty good, not with all these little pick marks. He might have used a bullseye pick. He might have used a pick hammer. I don't know. But even in here, he needed to raise this up a little bit. And there's all evidence of using a bullseye pick or a pick hammer on there. But these surfaces are all filed. He did it very methodically. There's nothing you could criticize about this. This is as good as it gets. And he specialized, I guess, in 550 Porsches and also Cobra bodies. And I think he's still active. I think he's younger than me. And if you need a 550 Porsche body made or a Cobra body made, I would definitely give him a call, and I think you'll be happy with the results. So no criticism of Bruce's work. It's just fabulous work. So we're going to make this piece. We have this panel which is flat, and you can see here there's not much happening here. There's just a little, what I call a waterfall. Even where this bend area is, it's pretty flat. There's a little hollow in here, but that's not a big issue there at all. So this lays down pretty flat. Put where the radius zone is, but when you mark the radius zones, you should carefully estimate where the center of the radius is, the beginning of the radius and the end of the radius. You have those lines in there, you punch those, and that gives you a true representation of where that bend has got to be made. And Mark didn't get the beginning and the end marks in, so he's laughing behind the camera now. But we're going to put those lines in so that we know where they're supposed to be. The more information you have about that surface, the easier it is to replicate it. So, we'll have to adjust this flexible shape pattern a little bit. But if we look at this, the most striking feature is this is doing this, and most of this is happening because this flange is on here. If we cut that flange off, what we have over in this area here. Let's see. Actually, there's not much happening here. Yeah. Because we got the void under there, and we put it like that, we got the void under here. So it's a inverted compound in here somewhere. That's, let's see if we can see that at all. Yeah, it's a little puffed up right in here. And it's going off. Yeah, right in here, it's a little puffed up. It's not a reverse, because generally a reverse, now here's a reverse over here. When you look at a flexible shape pattern, a reversed will come off the surface. So over here, this is a reverse, and over here we have a little reverse that's coming off, I think. Let's see. So that is going that way. Yeah, and it's coming around there, and there's a little bit of hollow under here, so it's causing this to be pulled away from the surface, so there's a little bit of reverse in here. But generally there's not too much reverse other than those two reverses there. There might be a little bit over in here. But what we can do first is we can just give this a general wheel to get this to be a little bit puffed. And then we're going to mark where this radius is. We got to get those dots in right and punch those dots in. And then we'll start to put this little radius in here. And then we can do this little feature here. We'll put these lines in and get this so it starts to look a little bit like that. So first thing we'll do is, we'll do it off camera, is we'll get this radius zone marked. And there's also a radius zone right here that Mark didn't get. And it's the big radius right here. So it's really flat up to here, and then it starts to transition into this radius, and it's probably pretty flat over here. So the center of the radius is right here, and Mark didn't get that. So we'll put that in, we'll put this in, and then we'll come back. All right, Mark punched all the holes, and now what we do is we'll put those lines in there so we know where that radius goes. And a lot of my students, they'll circle these. It's not circles, it's dashes. We want dashes. Circles will work, but dashes are better. You didn't know that, did you? All right, we got all the radius lines in, and we also have this little flange line in, which might change a little bit. So we'll bring the flexible shape pattern and the metal, and we'll go over to the wheel. All right, so we're gonna start by putting this radius in here. And we'll use the wheel to do that. We can also just put it on a fulcrum block over here. And we can just slowly push this over, which will work fine, but we'll try it on the wheel over here first. And this is a pretty big diameter anvil. It might not work as good as I hope, but let's see what happens. We can always go back to the fulcrum block. We can go to a smaller anvil on one of my other wheels. But let's just kind of pull this over. This is a fulcrum and lever operation. The lower anvil is the fulcrum. I'm the lever right here with this extra material. I just want to get that started to come over. And then we'll probably puff this up just a little bit with the wheel while we're here. And that'll give it a little positive look. A flat panel is not as pretty as a panel that has a little bit of raise to it, just a little bit. Now, it doesn't matter if we make a mistake here, and the mistakes can be not enough radius, or the radius being in the wrong place. I mean, all that's correctable. But we have the marks here, so it's telling us exactly where we need. Again, that's all about the information package. You need this information in order to proceed. A lot of my students, they listen to my lecture, you give them the verbal instructions of what you want to do on the panel, and oftentimes it initially doesn't sink in. It takes sometimes a couple days and sometimes longer. Everybody learns at different rates. So oftentimes you get people, the students at the wheel here, and you get the deer in the headlights look, and they really don't know what they're doing. And if you're at that stage, you should be asking questions. And the really important thing is we want to get a radius in here, but we don't want any anomalies popping up in the panel. We don't want anything. We know this panel is all nice and smooth and looks beautiful. If we do something here, and something could be, say we had really high pressure on it, it would cause a swell in the panel, or the panel raising up, and we don't want to do that. So you have to watch for any anomalies. If the top wheel is biting or the bottom wheel is biting, the top wheel will make marks right in the top of on the top surface of the panel. If the bottom wheel is biting, it'll make indents on each side of the bottom wheel, and they come through, and you actually can feel the resistance when that happens. So all of those are problems. They're not insurmountable, but you should be on the watch for them all the time. So we might not go all the way over here like this, but we got a good start on it so far here. And if we had a mistake and put it in the wrong spot, all we got to do is reverse the process, and we pull up. So a little thing that's like putting that radius in there will transform that panel. Now, we're probably getting a tiny bit of stretch even though we don't have much pressure, and that's why I want to put a little bit of stretch in this area here. So we'll tighten it up a little bit. Oh, the other mistake you can do is when you're using the wheel like that, I call it little fulcrum marks. If you're too aggressive with the pull down, and you do the pull down on the pull out, when you're pulling out, you pull down. If you're a little aggressive, you'll get a little fulcrum mark there. The bottom wheel will bite in a little bit, and it's going to be biting in the center, not on the edges. And those are correctable too. Remember, everything is correctable, but if your panel work is littered with a lot of corrections that you have to make, that means it's going to take you a lot more time. And it's good to make those mistakes, because that's how you learn not to make those mistakes. It's a learning process, and it's really something that can't be taught. You have to actually go out and experience it. I can warn you of it, but you're going to have to step on a mine or two before you figure out that it's not a good idea to step on a mine. So that's just a little puff in here, just to get that to be a better looking panel. And now we got this started. We put the little addition of area in here, and now let's see if we can address this. This needs to come this way here. So then we'll take and make sure your panel doesn't have any dust on it. We're going to take this and we're going to pull this down like this and start to put this curve in. Now these are essentially just one direction curves. So this is fabrication. The double curvature work is shaping. That's the big difference between fabrication and shaping. Fabrication is single curvature, break bent, or just a large radius bend. And shaping is when you have double curvature, two radiuses. All right, so that's got to come up quite a bit right on this little tail here. And we're not going to be able to do too much on this panel. We're just going to start it off tonight. I've given some pretty good information, I think, so far. And probably next week we'll finish this panel off on Monday or Tuesday of next week. So that's coming up. I probably could come a little bit more there. I could go more over here. We'll do that. And this flange transition, where it goes from this surface here, and then it's going to be tipped, and it goes at an angle flange. We'll put that in probably with a caulking tool on a beater bag, or maybe the clay. Maybe the clay might work even better. And we'll pop that in, and that will bring this up that little bit more. See, we're up as far as I think we need to go. This needs to come over a little bit more. So we'll get that clean. Pop this over a little more. Make sure that we don't want this tight. We just want it interacting, that's all. All right, so we got that, and let's get a gauge here, and we'll probably put this in a little bit more using that fulcrum block that we showed earlier. So we got gauge number 5 or 6, 6 and 5. We'll get 5 and 6, and we'll check that out. All right, so I got it marked. I got gauge number 5. And you can see that's what has to happen. There's your index mark here. It lines up right there, and we got to put that radius, and we just got it started with the wheel. And this is a nice fulcrum block. It's just made out of some wood that came. A lot of times skids that the metal comes in or whatever. And skids are very easy to get for free. There's a lot of companies that have skids that they're throwing out all the time. And you can grab a skid, and they've got some really good hardwood. Cut it up with the bandsaw, and then grind it and shape it. And so this one here, I've got a much larger radius here and a tighter radius here, and it also has a curve going this way. So it's a very user-friendly tool here for doing this type of work, bending radiuses. So we're going to take, and the danger here is we got a little bit of lever material, a lot here, a little bit here, so it's going to be harder to push this down. And this isn't a Neil, this is 050 3003, and we've got our guidelines of where we need to push this. So we push it a little bit, and we keep moving that fulcrum point. And it's just little simple operations like this that make this beautiful part. So it's not always, complicated wheeling. Sometimes it's just a matter of pushing against a piece of wood with a blanket on it, and presto changeo, you end up with a Porsche 550 dash. Now, if you go too strong, it's not the end of the world. You can back it off and go the other way and save the day. And we can tune this with a smaller diameter wheel. We now have those little mini game changer wheels, I call them, with the 2-inch anvils on them, and we even have 1-inch anvils. Those do really cool little operations and these little detail operations. So now we get that number 5 gauge, and we put it on there, and you're going to see this get closer and closer. The problem we have right now is we're supposed to quit at 10 o'clock. I do this all the time. I kind of trick Mark into staying late. Mark has to go home to Rhode Island. It's an hour drive home. And he won't be getting home for a while. Yeah, it's 10:30 now. We're a half hour over his general closing time. So look at that. See, this is all pretty easy to do, and that'll keep it nice and straight. That panel's supposed to be pretty straight there. There might be a little curve a little bit later over here. We might have to stretch the edge or something. So it's all coming nicely. The key here is patience. The key is moving where you're pushing, and just do little pushes at a time. Not anything big, because you get the kinks going on. The kinks were good in the 60s, but not now on this Porsche part. If you grunt, it actually works a little better. So that's coming in pretty good. We're down to, we were about like this far away, and now we're only about 3/8 of an inch away. So I think we'll just do a little bit more here. And remember to please tell your friends about the Pro Shaper Workshop channel. Please subscribe if you're not a subscriber. Give us the likes, the comments, and hit that little notification bell. We do have a like a 20-day period now that we're hopefully going to get some more videos, and we got a lot of little jobs we got to do in the shop. And of course, we're constantly making tools and everything for our website, proshaper.com. We sell tools all over the world, shrinking discs and the flexible shape patent tape and mallets and all kinds of stuff. English wheels, the rollers, the anvils. We got it all going on. And thank you very much for your patronage. Thanks for watching. And like I said, Mark has got to get home. And just a little bit of work tonight, and we got the process started. So that's all we're going to get done for tonight. Next week we'll do part 2 of this, and we should pretty well have it figured out. Maybe 3 parts on this, because there's a lot of details of flanges and stuff. But a simple operation like putting that radius in. It's a beautiful radius, simple tools. It's not a hard deal. So thanks for watching. It's Ray from Pro Shaper Workshop in Charlton, Massachusetts.